Hey there, everybody. This is Beyond the Beach, career conversations with graduates of Cal State Long Beach. I'm your host, Kenji Klein, Associate Professor of Management at the College of Business at California State University, Long Beach, where I teach business strategy, general management, and organization theory. In this show, I interview former students and recent graduates about life after Long Beach. Our conversations cover topics like how my guests chose a career path, how they landed their first job, and what it's been like to navigate the chaos, challenges, and opportunities of their early careers. My hope is that by hearing the stories of real people who were in your exact shoes just a few years ago, you can get an honest and realistic picture of what might be out there for you beyond the beach. My guest today is Jorge Padilla. Jorge was a student in my business strategy class in 2018 and now works as a media strategist at Ocean Media. Hey, Jorge, really great to see you.
Hello. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. So I want to dive right in, and I guess I just ask you some questions about what you've been up to and where you're at now. So if you could just briefly introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, when you graduated, what you majored in or what you studied, and then why you chose that field.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like you said, my name is Jorge Padilla. I'm 31 years old. I was born in Mexico, migrated to the U.S. when I was around 8, 9, and completed my studies here in L.A. And came here to Cal State Long Beach to graduate with a bachelor's degree in business marketing. This was 2018. Right after college, I started my first job as a sales coordinator at iHeart Media, and then moved on to my current position right now. Right now, I'm at Ocean Media, like you mentioned. It's a media buying agency, and I'm under the research department where I do media strategies.
Okay, cool. So I'm curious, why did you choose marketing as your major? And I guess also, why did you decide to go into business school instead of just the other majors that were available?
Yeah, well, when I graduated high school, I started with community college because I wasn't sure where I wanted to go.
Right.
My initial thought was, computer science,
Okay.
but I took a couple of business classes, and I started kind of, getting the likes of how it works, and transferred to Cal State Long Beach. I heard they had a good program for business. Hopped in Cal State Long Beach, and then took a couple of classes.
Right.
And I didn't really know where I was going when I
Mm-hmm.
was taking these classes. I took different courses that, I mean, when you think of marketing, it's different sectors of marketing.
Right.
So it was until I took your class, strategy, that I was just more intrigued into how business strategies work,
Right.
and all the components that go into that. And when I graduated, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into business strategy, but there was a lot of bumps in the road that
Right.
kind of I wasn't able to go directly to my desirable position that I wanted to do.
I think that's tough with strategy, right? Because I really enjoy it. I think it's a really interesting topic, and I think a lot of students find it really interesting. But the difficult thing is strategy is more of a higher level part of the organization, right? And so when you're fresh out of college, I think it's really hard to find opportunities in strategy. So that might explain why that was like that. So it wasn't a case where you thought from the beginning, oh, definitely I want to do marketing. Like that wasn't necessarily your thing, but it was just that when you got here and you started taking classes, the marketing classes like appealed to you more than say, the other areas like HR, finance, accounting.
Correct. Yeah, the marketing ones were the ones that, I mean, when I transferred, like I knew I wanted to do marketing. Prior to, while I was going to community college, I was
Okay.
working as an EMT for an ambulance company. So it was a small business, so we kind of had to do a little bit of marketing going into,
I see.
hospitals, going into dialysis centers, and customer service.
Right.
So I kind of like that, just promoting my business, promoting my service
Right.
to, the people. I mean, I also, worked, in the serving industry.
Okay.
So a lot of customer service,
Right.
a lot of promotion, and all that stuff, and making sales. So all of that kind of just I knew I wanted to be in marketing.
Okay.
It was when I got here that I was like, well, sector of marketing do
Okay.
I want to be on? And taking all these courses, it was just research, green marketing,
Right.
management, So there was a lot of options, but yeah, I decided towards the end what I wanted to do. And yeah, now I'm here
Okay.
trying to do that
Right.
still, yeah.
So EMT.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
how did that happen? And then why'd you switch from that? And then I guess the other part of it is that mean you must be pretty cool under pressure, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I think I've worked under pressure, the service industry. You're busy, you're under pressure, working, multitasking a lot of stuff, EMT as well. I did it because I wanted to get a degree quick.
Yep.
So there was an EMT program in Rio Hondo that, allowed me to get that certification. And then I went into that position.
Okay. So then, so when you graduated and you said you want to do strategy, but that was hard to find. So tell me about that first job that you had. How'd you get it? What was that process like? And then how did you make that transition from being a student to being somebody who was working in like a business field?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a bit tough, the first year when I graduated. Like I said, I'm a DACA recipient. So
Okay.
for me, going to school was having to work full time
Right.
and having to go to school full time because I didn't get the financial help that a lot of people get. So
Right.
I had to kind of pay my own classes. I have to pay my books, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to network and I wasn't able to do internships because I was so busy just doing my work and
Right.
going to school full time. And so when I graduated, looking for that job was a little bit hard because
Okay.
I didn't know anyone
Right.
in the industry. I know where I wanted to be, but like you said, I wanted to be in strategy. You need
Yeah.
experience for that,
Yeah.
And I had no experience at all. I didn't do an internship, but I did know somebody who was within that field
Okay.
in sales for iHeart Media.
Okay.
So she told me about an open position, and she recommended me. So the position was for sales coordinator.
Okay. And sorry to interrupt. That person that you knew, how did you know them? Did you meet them at school? Did you meet them through your job? It was just like a friend, family friend, or?
It was a family
Okay.
friend that I know from high school.
Okay.
Yeah, but we never really talked about,
Sure.
after our careers. We never really, after graduating, we never really kind of spoke about what are you doing, It was until like, I started applying to all these open positions and, I was getting interviews here and there. And I'm telling you, applying like 3 times a week, 3 applications a week, sometimes 4 a week. And I wasn't getting called like I thought I was going to get called,
Right.
for interviews. So, I started reaching out to people, like, hey, do you know anybody hiring, and actually I didn't reach out to her, but she knew I was looking
Okay.
for a position within the field and say, hey, you might be interested in this. I didn't think anything of it.
Right.
Because sales is not where I wanted,
Right.
where I wanted to be.
Right.
So,
Sales is a
but,
different
I was like, you know what? Something's better than nothing at this point.
Yeah.
I'd rather get in the field and see what I want to do later on with this. So yeah, definitely, I went in and I got an interview.
Okay.
My interview was pretty long. I want to say it was 2 hours. I don't know why it
Okay.
took 2 hours. I spoke to a lot of people.
Right.
But I feel like within that interview, I got to meet a lot of people,
Right.
and I got to make like connections
Right.
with them, and not connections in terms of, like just a little bit of like getting to know them.
Right.
They knew who I was, and I kind of knew who they were, and I think they saw something in me, and they're like, you know what, yeah, like you're qualified for the position,
Okay.
and so they once my training started, I was like, okay, I like this,
Okay.
So it was for iHeart Media, and I was a sales coordinator for selling advertising in the radio.
Advertising,
Yeah,
okay.
so yeah, it was a good start for me once I started that,
What
and
did
that took a year.
That's what I was
For
going to
me.
ask. So I was going to ask you a
Yeah.
couple things. So the first one was, so you said that you hadn't gotten financial aid when you were a student, so you were working. So I'm assuming you were working as an EMT
Yeah.
while you were a student. Okay. And that was obviously not a clear transfer. It's not transferable to the
No.
kind of business.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Nothing related.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you could pitch it as, but I can deal with stress. Right?
Yeah.
But okay, so there's that. And then I was going to ask you how long it took you, how long you were doing the applications and all of that. And so you said it was a year before you landed that
It was
job.
about a year. So I graduated 2018. I didn't start the job until pre-COVID, like 2 weeks before COVID happened, which is 2019.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's when
Oh, wow.
I landed the job. 2 weeks of training and then work from home.
Okay.
It was, yeah.
That must have been kind of crazy.
It was, yeah, it was
Yeah.
crazy time because, this is what I wanted. And
Right.
it's like, now we're going home,
Yeah.
So,
And then you had said that you were reaching out to a bunch of people after the applications through the other, through the traditional methods weren't working. Were you reaching out to only people that you were close to, or were you sort of just like, hey, I know I've got a connection, so I'm just letting them know? Like, how did you approach that? Even though the person who actually helped you get this job, right, wasn't one of the people you reach out to, I'd still like to get a sense for what you were doing.
yeah, so I have many friends who are, they have their careers already. They were
Right.
working already. It took me a little longer to graduate just because I was in community college.
Yeah.
And I was there for a bit, and so by the time that I was out, that I graduated, all my friends were graduated,
Okay.
had their positions. And so friends that I haven't really spoken in a while, I just reached out, hey, like, just graduated for this. Let me know if you know someone or your employer is hiring within this field. So I just wanted to shoot my shot because at that point it was, you get to hear, networking is so important throughout school. But, I didn't really listen to it because I was like, I'll just get my degree and apply and I'll get a position. But you really do need to make relationships with people to be able to get into any industry you want to be in, and just know people. And, because sometimes industries are pretty small.
Right.
And somebody might know somebody and they might refer you, and that could be your opportunity.
Yeah. And I say this a lot when I'm talking to students who are asking for advice about it. One of the things is when you see a resume, you have no idea how accurate it is, and you're trying to interpret that resume and guessing about the person. So it's really thin data. But when somebody refers someone to you, you actually can get a better sense of what that person is like. Like, okay, the person says they're this, is that true? Or, yeah, this person's good or reliable or, whatever. They can tell a little bit more about you. And I think that's really helpful because when you're hiring, you don't want to make a mistake and hire someone who looks good on paper and then they're just a disaster.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then I think the other thing is I'm assuming that the friend who did help you get this particular job with iHeart Media, did she hear that you were looking for a job from some of the other people you had reached out to? Is that how she found out?
Yeah, so she heard through, my family,
Okay.
So, oh, yeah, he's applying. He hasn't landed a job, but he's looking. And, the way that she kind of presented it was, for me, it was unexpected because, I wasn't expecting anything.
Right.
And the way she offered it is like, I don't know if you're going to like this, but
Yeah.
like, here it is. Like, if you're interested, let me know,
Right.
And I mean, like I said, at that point, I was just like, yeah, like, let's do it. And, that was a door that opened that was able to open other doors,
Right.
And opportunities. And I met great people that I wasn't expecting. So the whole situation for me was unexpected.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about then that first job. When you got in, what was it like? What were the challenges? How'd you make the adjustment? And then what was valuable about it? And what did you learn?
Yeah, so starting the job, I mean, that was my first office job. Wasn't really prepared for everything. And it was a little bit tough because, like I said, it was 2 weeks of training and then COVID hit and then we were sent home. So everything that I learned was basically remote.
Okay.
So it was very challenging, but, I was very determined and dedicated to I've always been really dedicated and determined to whatever I want to do. And I think my boss, that's what she saw and that's what she liked.
Right.
And I think one of the toughest, things about, that position, I feel it was communication, because we weren't in office, so all the communication was, virtual. And for me, it's just everything. This is everything new on top of new.
Yeah.
And everybody was new to this. So, yeah, definitely everything that I kind of was exposed to at that time.
Right.
It was new on top of new.
Okay.
So
Right.
I wasn't, we were all learning to do this, like, virtual work.
Yeah.
And I was learning that plus,
How to do the actual.
yeah,
basic
that
job.
actually,
Right.
how to do the actual, but, it was a fun journey, but, so I was there. I got hired in April, and then 8 months afterwards, there was massive layoffs.
Right.
And I was one of them that got laid off. Yeah. So it was a true hit for me because after a year of kind of looking for a job and, doing everything right those 8 months, that specific branch under iHeart, it went bankrupt because of the whole situation that was going on.
Right.
And so my boss called me and she's like, this breaks my heart. Like, I wish I wasn't telling you this because, you've been excellent, but there's not much I could do. And she's like, we'll talk later,
Right.
I was like, it's fine, it happens.
It is what it is, right?
Yeah, it is what it
you gotta
is.
Respond to it somehow.
And then like 2 days afterwards, 2 days after, she gave me a call. She's like, hey, I know your potential. I know what you could do. I want to help you out because I feel like this, you don't really deserve being in that position.
Right.
And she was able to kind of refer me to my current job that I have right now. So she was able to open that door for me, and it took me a month to, land this up. I mean, she helped me out with the interview.
Right.
I had my interview, and they got me, and it was.
So she introduced you. She said like there's a job available.
Yeah, she referred me
to
to one of the head of the media buying departments within Ocean Media.
Right.
And for me it was like, she was a really good guide in terms of, I never really asked her for all these advice that she gave me, and she was,
Right. But I think it's interesting because it speaks to, my understanding, and, that you see this a lot, is that people who are in a certain position in an organization, right, when they look at the people that are earlier than them or, earlier in their career than them, when they see somebody who has the right attitude and mentality and mindset and work ethic, a lot of them, they want to help those people out. Yeah. They want to develop them because they're just like, this is talent, and it's a shame to see it go to waste.
Yep.
Right. So I think that speaks to how important it is, to have that mindset of, like you said, right, you're going to get the job done and you're going to work hard and focus and be determined and stuff. I think it makes a really big difference when you leave that kind of impression. Because I'm assuming there may have been other people who didn't have the same sort of determination or drive who also got laid off and probably had a harder time getting back on their feet because they didn't have somebody who said, oh, I recognize potential in that person.
Right. And I also think, a lot of people say network is important, But network is important, but you can meet a lot of people, but who's going to kind of stick out for you, you know?
Right.
And it's going to be that person that you have, an honest and genuine relationship with, that they know what you could offer. And I feel like that's what really makes, getting to know someone very important, just because you have that, like, relation, like, genuine relation of, interchangeable, just, that kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but just they know what you are,
Right.
what you are capable of,
Right.
because like I said, like you said, she might have known, other people that got laid off, but she just knows them, but
Yeah.
will she stick her hand, out for them?
Right.
Because, it has to do with, the kind of relationship you build with that person,
Yeah.
not just, hey, I know you,
Right.
and you help me out.
So that's interesting too, to me, because I feel like a lot of students get this advice: oh, you need a network, you need a network, and you need to go to these networking events, and they're sort of thrown to these events, and they don't know what to do except for you go around, meet people, shake hands, and get business cards
Mm-hmm.
or exchange contact information.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we talk very much about how do you actually build a real connection? How do you sort of get to understand somebody or have somebody see something in you?
Right.
So maybe the advice that we give people to just go and network isn't really great advice because there's no
Mm-hmm.
meat to it about what that actually means and how do you make it work. And what you're talking about, I think, is really important, right? That you do want to have some kind of authentic, you know, mutual understanding that
Right.
happens when you meet someone, and that can't happen from just shake hands and exchange contact information. It's got to be more to it than that.
Yeah. Agree 100%.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it was about a month, and then you were in Ocean Media.
Yeah, it was about a month, and
And when you started, did you start as a media strategist, or how did you start?
no, I started as an assistant for a media buyer.
Okay.
So I was under the TV section, TV media buying
Right.
for all local stuff. Which is you know
And I'm going to pause for a second. So media buying means what? Like, what does that actually mean?
so media buying is buying those spots, those advertisements, whether it's in TV, radio, digital.
Okay.
So there's different kind of sectors of media buying. So I was under linear, but under linear there you have two. You have national, which is cable,
Right.
and then you have broadcast, which is local markets.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit what you see just in your
Right.
regular local stations. So I was doing that. I
Okay.
wasn't at a national level.
Right.
I was under all the local buyers.
Okay. So at iHeartMedia, you had been on the sales side.
Correct. Yeah.
And so now you're on the other side in
Right.
a sense. And so then what Ocean Media, what you're doing is you're buying time from various, media outlets
Right.
and then finding clients to fill that time with advertising. Is that what it is? Or is that
So
someone else's job, or how does that work?
yeah. So our agency has clients who come to us and they're like, okay, like I want to I have this much budget.
Right.
I want to whether increase awareness or increase my revenue.
Right.
So how can you allocate it? How can you give me a good response? How
Okay.
can we reach people?
Right.
And then this is the top, which is the strategists who
Right.
kind of allocate that budget,
Right.
whether it's at a national level or
Right.
at a local level. And once it's allocated at a local level, so they give us amount of budget. And for example, as a media buying assistant, I was only in charge of a couple of markets, probably
Okay.
3 or 4, that we were buying spots. So spots is kind of like the spot in the advertising section for TV, and then we would also do radio. So I was actually communicating with the people that I used to work with at iHeart.
Right.
So before I used to communicate with Ocean Media.
Okay.
Now I was communicating with iHeart, sending out orders. Depending on whether it's radio for them, and then for TV it was the broadcasters, that's ABC, Fox,
Okay.
all those stations.
So when you first got into Ocean and you're media buying assistant, what's your mindset about your job? What are you looking at? What are you thinking about? Are you thinking about the long term? Like, what's going on in your head at that point?
That's a good question. I want to go back and kind of, because I mean, for me, everything was new,
Yeah.
and what was going on was so new. I mean, to everyone. So I wasn't sure where I was going. I knew where I wanted to be. I wasn't sure how I was going to get there.
Right.
But I knew I was already doing something that could potentially get me there. So I started kind of, like I said, doing my job,
Yeah.
like performing at my best just to keep that job, at
Yeah.
that moment, because I was trying to, keep that job because of what was going on. So I didn't really have a goal
Okay.
at that point of where's this going to take me,
Right.
It was more of like, okay, I'm here. This is an opportunity. Let me make the best of it.
Yeah.
And I know where I want to be. And eventually I'm going to connect the dots,
Okay. Yeah.
Eventually I'm going to move up there. And, at that point, I didn't really know how the industry worked. I was
Okay.
new to it. So I was getting trained. I
Right.
wasn't sure what I was doing, if I was doing it right or not.
Right.
But little by little, just kind of getting to know the industry. I'm like, oh, this how I can move around.
Okay.
This helps me with this, and just kind of connecting the dots. After a while, after being there, getting to know the industry.
So was there a point at which you were like, oh, there's a media strategist who does this kind of thing, and I had wanted to do strategy and sort of say, maybe that's where I want to go? Was there a point at which that happened, or did you see that right away, or did it just kind of like came about?
No, so when I started as an assistant media buyer, um, I I wasn't aware of the other positions there were
Okay.
within the agency. Um, right after that, I became a buyer.
Okay.
So I started buying, and it was within the year that my agency kind of created this, department. So merged the research department with some of the planning department, and you know, joined together. They made the strategy team.
Okay.
So they were looking for for anybody that wanted to, not anybody,
Right.
but just
They're
they were
looking
looking
for
for
people to
yeah, uh-huh. So within my agency, it's about it's all about internal growth,
Right.
So uh, they put it up on our chat. Is like, anybody interested in and meet a strategy, um, reach out to this person. So yeah, I wasn't sure I was prepared.
Right.
I wasn't sure how much I could offer the team,
Yeah.
just because it was probably a year and a half that I had been working there. I didn't understand the um, the industry that well.
Right.
I felt like I was fairly new to it,
Right.
and I was working at a local level, and the
Right.
strategy was at a national level, which is
Got
completely
it.
different.
Yeah.
But I wanted to shoot my shot, so I was
Right.
like, I'm gonna talk to this person and see if I qualify or not.
Right.
And when I was doing local buying for as a media buyer, I did a couple of research. I did a couple of research for some of the markets that I had that kind of spilled into Canada,
Okay.
just kind of understanding, how much that broadcast station reached Canada. So it's like little stuff like that, just kind of learning my market, learning
Right.
how even the people within that market,
Right.
what do they listen to, the demographic and all that stuff.
Now, was looking at those kinds of things something that was typical for anyone in your position would have just done that, or was it you sort of saying, "Oh, I think maybe I should learn a little bit more about this"?
I think it's more of like, if you want to become like a good buyer,
Yeah.
you have to understand, your market. So
Right.
you have to understand, these broadcast stations, how they work, because you're investing all these dollars, that you kind of have to know where you're investing these dollars.
Right.
So how you're reaching your audience. So you want to make sure, because a state in the Midwest is not the same thing,
Yeah.
anywhere else. They drive out early in the morning to their jobs. So probably listen to radio more than they watch TV in the morning. So things like that, that you kind of have to do a little bit of research to understand, you know, your customer base. So that kind of helped me out when moving to strategy, because for strategy, we're based more on like a lot of research. So yeah, I think, again, my boss, I think he saw the potential. I was not expecting, again, went in there with no expectations. I didn't know if I was going to get it or not. You know, I wanted to move, you know, because, you know, you hear broadcast is like slowly dying, you know. You got streaming, you got cable, you got podcasts, you know, you got all these media outlets that you could just, you know, tune into right now. And a lot of brands are going into those new media outlets because they have a lot of impressions. They have a lot of people listening to tuning in. So I was like, I don't want to stay in broadcast until it kind of dies, you know, slowly. So let me learn about national, you know. So
and you had this experience of being in something that died, and then having to find a new job. So I'm imagining your motivation was pretty high to like have some transferable things to other stuff.
That's always, you know, that was a traumatic experience for me. I'm like, I don't, you know, and that's like one thing that I always, you know, I kind of learned from. I was like, you just have to keep on going. You know, you just have to keep looking for what you want. And I mean, to me, my personal experience is like zero expectations. I'm going to do this, you know, if I get it good. If I don't, I'm just going to keep on trying to, you know, to just, you know, move forward on to what I really want. And I feel like it's helped me out. But yeah, like I had my interview. I had the interview with my boss, and he was supposed to hire only one person, and I was kind of like the second person that he hired. He was like, okay, like I already hired someone, but I think you should be on the team. I was like, all right, sounds good.
That's great.
And it was very difficult. It just, the transition was very difficult because it was a whole complete different language, you know. And it takes me back to school because, you know, all these terms that I learned in my research class, you know, in my marketing research class, all these terms that I've, you know, I was learning that I wish I had the time to kind of like intake everything, but I was so caught up on, you know, working, passing my classes and all this stuff that, you know, I didn't really retain everything that I wanted, and everything was coming out again, you know, with this position, you know, a whole completely different language. And, you know, I have to kind of relearn everything because, you know, working as a coordinator or an assistant, you know, you don't really get exposed to, you do get exposed, but not as much when you go into those higher level positions where you, everything that you learn, you have to kind of apply it, you know, you have to kind of just bring it all out. And it was a while for me that I was in school. So
It's interesting because I think part of the issue is when you're in school, you're learning a ton of stuff, right? And you don't know which thing you're actually going to need in the workplace. Because you could have had a completely different trajectory, and then this stuff that, you know, in marketing research may not have been important to you. You could have gone in a different direction, right? So there's a whole bunch of things that you learn in school, some of which you need now, some which you may need later, some which you may never need. So when you're in school, you don't know, right, what's worth really, really paying attention to. And it's not an immediate need, so that's what's hard, right? So, you know, I can understand how you're not going to absorb everything because you're just like, I don't know if I need this or not. So the brain is going to be efficient and say, okay, I'm going to create a little slot for it and lay down a minimum track, and then that's good enough for now. And then I guess hopefully the idea is there's enough space that's been reserved for it that when you need it and go back to it and start looking at it again, it resonates with something already in your head so that you can learn it faster than if you were just starting from scratch.
And I mean, the industry does change, you know. So everything that I learned back in 2018 kind of changed, you know.
That's also true.
So It's about learning again what you learned, but also kind of changing it a little bit because the industry has changed, you know?
Right.
So my agency, they provide us with tools where we could, you know, kind of keep up with the changes within the industry. And I think one thing that really helped me from your class, from your course, business strategy is, you know, knowing the market, you know, kind of listening to, reading these articles, you know, listening to NPR, what's going on, because at the end of the day, like, we need to understand how politically, economically, how everything is working so we can make the proper investment, you know, so we could allocate dollars, you know, efficiently, not just, okay, we have this much money, here we go. No, we have to kind of report on what's happening. And I think, you know, you made us do these assignments that now that I'm working as a strategist, I do them now, you know, like I read articles, I listen to podcasts, you know, like, because I need to be up to date, you know, and it's going to be like that until I decide to not work anymore, but I'm still going to be doing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and especially like in the work that you're doing, right, is if media strategist, I'm guessing it's like, so you're making decisions about where to place, where to place ads, where to place resources, where to place money, and so which markets and how to approach it. So you need to have some understanding of like, where's the audience at, like mentally, what's going on with them, what's going on with them economically, and all that stuff. With that does require you to have a broader understanding of what's going on in society overall and the economy overall and what direction it's going and all of those kind of things. I think if you weren't paying any attention to that stuff, you'd have a hard time making those decisions intelligently, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, when political, you know, with all the stuff, the political things like the elections, you know, everybody's broadcasting about, you know, politics. So everything's a little bit more, you know, tends to be a little bit more restricted, you know, so they give priority to those advertisers. So it's harder to kind of find like a spot for our clients. So, you know, we have to find other ways of allocating that money with it, whether it's digital or, so yeah, it's everything, you know, if there's something bad happening in the news, you know, and our commercials, our ads are, you know, being placed within news, we don't want to be placed right after a bad, you know, not a bad, but just something that, you know, is not going to resonate good with so all of that matters, you know.
Interesting. So that's just a lot of psychology too, then. Interesting. Yeah.
So
it sounds like really interesting work, though. I mean, it sounds like it'd be really fun to do.
I think my favorite part about, you know, strategy is the research part about it, you know, understanding, you know, who's the target demographic, you know, who's going to buy our product, you know, like, where can we find them? Where are they spending their time? What do they like? What do they do? Are they parents? Are they no kids? So for me, that's the fun part of my job, you know, just kind of knowing who is, you know, my customer base, you know, I think that's my favorite part.
That's cool. So who they are, and then how to present something that's going to resonate with them.
Right. Yeah. So we don't have a lot of, at least my agency, we don't do creative. So we don't do, you know, the actual commercials. So those are given to us. So we just have to kind of find ways of how to reach our audience.
So you're not producing the actual commercials, right?
No.
Do you have to think about, well, okay, this is what the commercial is, so who is this going to resonate with? Or is it like you don't even know what the commercial is going to be, you just have to figure out, you know, who to approach, and then whatever they give you just gets plugged in?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So since we don't have, you know, much power with, you know, the creative that is being made, our focus is, you know, who is our audience? Where is our audience? And what are going to be the key performance indicators of our audience. And, once we know that, we play those commercials, and then we start kind of seeing the performance that this creative has. And I mean, if they're not doing well, maybe it's time to kind of change, the creative. But creative is very expensive, so you can't just they bring the creative, and if you tell them like, well, we don't like it, right. I don't think it's gonna be that great. They're like, well, that's what we have, like we just spend this much money on it, so
we're not gonna redo the entire production.
Right. Yeah. So our kind of job, our job is to find the people, find the target demographic of our clients,
right,
and making sure the performance is good.
That's interesting. That sounds complicated though, because you don't know what's coming, what you're going to be presenting them with.
Right.
So you really just have to focus on making sure that the clients you find are going to be open to whatever the product is or the service is,
right, for
that your customers are offering.
Right. And I mean, and I used a lot of tools to kind of find the audience, we use a research tool that allows us to find the audience, how big this audience is. Right. It's kind of like a survey-based tool where a specific sample is answering, all these questions, and algorithms. The people tend to have like similar attitudes. So, right. Once you have like a good, sample size, that's a good route to go. Right. And then that sample size, you kind of just move it around. Okay, like, what are they watching?
Right.
Like, what are they doing? So, and then you just kind of create like a demo profile of like, how does this person look? Yeah. How old are they? How much are they, making? Right. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
that's cool.
It's like a science to it.
Yeah.
I feel.
So you said when you first got into that job, right? It was hard.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you to start feeling comfortable in it? And then what was your sort of path as you got better and better, and how did that play out? Like, how did you stay afloat? How did you get on top of it? And then, what did you do once you kind of felt like you were on top of it?
I think that, I'm still on my toes, because like I said, everything changes,
Yeah.
So I'm always willing to learn. So there's always, new things coming up. So it's not just a set like, oh, like I know the industry, I know how it works. Good, I'm set. It's more of like so many changes are happening and that I have to keep up. So I'm never kind of, I feel like I know most of it,
right.
But like, for example, with this streaming, the streaming service, killing the market. They're just taking over,
right.
TV. It's measuring impressions. It's a whole different, ballgame, because with cable, it's a little bit more standard. It's everybody's watching the same thing.
Right.
Commercials are airing the same time.
Yeah.
You're able to kind of measure impressions a little bit more efficiently, and price them.
Yeah.
Because an impression has a price, and that's what the client is paying,
right.
For impressions. But now with streaming, everybody's watching at different times.
Right.
Everybody watching different commercials.
Right.
So it changes everything, changes the industry.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening right now. And that's why I feel like I can be comfortable, and
right.
I know what I know.
Right.
But yeah, it took me probably about 5 to 5 months to kind of feel comfortable doing what I was doing.
Okay.
But like I said, still,
right.
Changes are happening, and
but at least like after the 4th or 5th month, you no longer felt like you were just at complete risk of drowning, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's a maybe yes.
Okay, maybe yes.
Yeah.
Right. And now, because everything is changing, you just are still struggling to stay afloat because that's just the nature of the environment you're in, right?
Yeah.
The industry you're in.
Yeah.
But that's hard, but then it also keeps it interesting, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, there's a competition of right now of, who's going to come up with the right currency of impressions of pricing this viewership. And I mean, it's cool to watch, how everything's kind of getting structured.
Right.
But yeah, I enjoy it. I just enjoy it, but I always tell myself, there's always a but. I always question everything,
Yeah.
So I tend not to get comfortable, right. I feel.
But I think that's, and maybe that attitude was something that your boss who hired you for this position and then the prior boss who recommended you maybe noticed about you, right? Like that, not necessarily getting too comfortable, but wanting to keep learning and pushing and figuring out what's going on. Because I think most people in these types of positions recognize it's going to be in flux like this for a long time, right? It's not like, the streaming thing is just going to settle in 3 years and then it'll be set and then everyone can just, establish a routine and just keep doing it. It's just going to keep changing and changing and changing and changing and changing. So, in order to be successful or good in that environment, you need to have somebody who's willing to keep at it and keep learning and keep growing and keep trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think, for me, I'm okay with learning my whole life because that's something that kind of gives me a thrill, just knowing things, not just, settling. And I feel like this position, that's what it has, and just how it plays with, with every dynamic of, of our society, which is, economics, politics, just everything's changing all the time, culture, everything's changing all the time. And, every industry is trying to shape up according to these changes.
Right.
So you have to be willing to change with it and learn, and you have to learn and relearn and maybe unlearn what you learned to learn this other new thing. And I've thought about it. I'm like, I want to go back to school to learn what's going on. What are the new, the new kids learning, because, it changes. And when you're stuck in the position and you get comfortable and then you just do what when you try to move somewhere else where they're more innovative, it's hard to kind of adapt because they're in a whole different environment of learning with, changing with, society with these new changes.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So let me ask you this. I'm curious. If you could go back into time and give advice to you as a student when you were a student, what would you tell yourself?
Whoa, the first thing that I would tell myself would be network. I know everybody says it.
Right.
I know everybody says it, but, building relationships is very important. It's, for me, that's one thing that I didn't do in school. I didn't have the time to do it. I was just so focused on getting my degree and, getting out of school and start working. But it just, more than just that, it's just building relationships with, your peers, your professors, getting internships and, building relationships within those, places. Because at the end of the day, the industry that you're going to go into, it's not this huge thing that you think it is. This so many people and they're not going to know, it's sometimes pretty small and everybody knows each other. Right. So, you have that shot of, knowing somebody that knows somebody where you want to go. And if, that specific position doesn't fulfill you, they might know somebody within another industry that, Right. So for me, it's it was very important now. I will go back and tell myself, enjoy school,
Right.
You know, I think that's one of the things that I didn't do either. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy everything that was kind of being presented to me. So I was just trying to get it done, 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 done.
Right.
And yeah, I know. I think it sounds, I mean, if you're a student at the moment, you're like, oh, no, like enjoy school. Like, what do you mean, you know?
Right.
But, you know, it doesn't, I mean, I'm not trying to scare it, but it doesn't get any easier, you
Right.
know? I think for me, the hardest part about going to school, you know, graduating is like landing that job and then,
Yeah.
you know, adapting to your work environment and, you know, like I said, like just learning the industry. It's a nonstop learning experience. So start with school with, you know, enjoying it, you know,
Right.
because you're gonna be on it. If you want to be in your field, you're gonna have to kind of want to enjoy what you're doing.
Right.
So start now, so you could, you know, feel comfortable later on.
Right.
Yeah.
So find a way to learn how to enjoy that
Yeah.
process of learning.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
As crazy as it sounds.
Right.
Yeah, like
because otherwise you're gonna like either you're gonna struggle when you have to do the learning, or you're just gonna hate it.
Yeah.
Right. Because you haven't learned it. Cause you haven't learned to enjoy it, and you won't have as much time to learn to enjoy it.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's very fast paced. You know, once you start getting into your you know your careers, so there's not a lot of room to be able to do things here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking about fast pace in career, I'm curious if you find that you do have time to maintain some kind of work-life balance, or if it's just work is just so much that it's overwhelming everything.
At the beginning, I was so focused on just work, work, work. You know, perform, perform.
Yeah.
You know, and I was getting consumed with you know working long hours. You know, not really taking care of myself, and I started you know hating what I did because it was work. You know, long hours, eat and then sleep, wake up, same thing, just routine, just work. So I tried. I was getting a little, you know, concerned about my passion for what I was doing. So I kind of changed things up. You know, like I I started giving myself a schedule where I woke up at 5 in the morning. You know, go for a workout, freshen up,
Right.
you know, work, take a break, you know, walk my dog, finish work,
Yeah.
read a book, go outdoors, go, you know, for a run or do activities. And I feel like that kind of, you know, brought me back to, you know, my passion, what I really wanted to do because I was just not burned out anymore.
Right.
I was doing all these different things that kind of distracted me from my job
Yeah.
that you know when I came back from to my job I was more efficient,
Right.
you know, and just taking those days off as well, you know, if you feel burned out, take a 1 day or 2 days, you know, our work, our job, well, where I work at, they're very open about you taking, you know, a mental health day, you know,
Right.
like if you feel burned out, you're more efficient if you take a day off, you relax, you come back, you're fresh, you know.
Yeah.
So I think work, you know, work-life balance is very important. You just gotta, you know, set a schedule, because if you don't have a schedule, you're just gonna get consumed and
Right.
you're gonna get burned out and you're gonna hate what you're doing.
Right.
And yeah,
Yeah.
you don't make the right decisions. Yeah.
So you had a moment where you realized something's got to give, and then you basically decided that you would create some boundaries and say, during this period of time, I'm doing this for me, and during this period of time, I'm doing this for me.
Yeah, yeah, and I learned this from my boss because he's very he encourages, he wants us to be efficient,
Right.
you know, and he knows how people work and
Yeah.
how people are more efficient. So, you know, he gave us like a structure of, you know, his day to day,
Right.
you know, and I wanted to apply it to myself, and you know, it worked for me my own way, you know,
Yeah.
just for me it works. I like waking up early in the morning, and you know, I have those hours to kind of just, you know, start fresh and
Yeah.
you know, go to work and, taking those little breaks in between and doing something fun afterwards.
Right.
That kind of makes me forget about work. So the next day, I'm a little bit more efficient. My passion's still there. Yeah.
So it's good that you had a boss who has the same attitude. I do find some people have bosses who it's almost like they're more concerned that you seem like you're working really hard than what your output is. And I think if you have that kind of boss, it can be really difficult. Whereas if you have a boss who recognizes what matters is the output good? And if the way to get good output is taking breaks, taking care of yourself, that's more important.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's the way you got to do it with your life. You can't just get stuck on one single thing because you're not going to be efficient at it. You just have to do multiple things that can get you distracted.
Yeah. And so I'm curious then also, like how do you define success? Like what does success look like to you? What does it mean for you?
Yeah, so this is interesting because when I was younger, when I was going to college, even before college, I defined success as money,
Right.
As tangible things,
Yeah.
So what do I have? Like, this higher position, like, this prestigious, like, I just saw success as, sometimes what like society kind of portrays it,
Right.
Where you need to have money that you're successful. But, along the way, I just feel like your knowledge, your skills, everything that you've done, that you've learned, even, the things that you failed at, that you learned from failing, all those things are success, because these skills that you're learning could drive you anywhere you want to go, whether it's a lot of money,
Right.
whether it is happiness, whether it is, health, whatever you want, wherever you want to go, I feel your skills, your knowledge, and your experiences will drive you there.
Right.
So, yeah, to me, that's success because success will lead you to whatever path you want to go to.
Right.
Yeah.
It gives you the options
Yeah.
to exercise whatever it is that you think is the best path. That's
Yeah,
great.
because I feel, not everybody wants to be rich.
Right.
Not everybody wants money. Some people just want to be happy. Some
Right.
people just want to, be able to live an okay life and spend a lot of time with their family.
Right.
So, does that mean somebody who's pursuing happiness is not successful?
Right.
Just because they don't put money first?
Right.
I feel like it's, your values, everything that you've learned. That's what, I define as success now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting though, but you had started it as those skills, those experiences and stuff, right, are sort of the foundation for that. And it seems like, whether you're choosing family or whether you're choosing money or whether you're choosing some other thing, travel or whatever it is, it's like having that skill set will make it easier for you to get there. Because you can always, it's like if you're going to focus on your family, you probably still need to supply for your family, make sure you're paying rent and have a house and stuff, right? So if you've got good skills, you can do that without it being like all of your time spent at work,
Right.
So that'll give you the time for your family and
Right.
stuff. So that's interesting to think about skills in that way.
Yeah. I think, success is for me, it's more of a internal. Let me rephrase it. I think for me, it's what you are worth inside in terms of what you have accomplished that no one's gonna take away.
Right.
Because money comes and goes.
Right.
Tangible things come and go. So whatever you have learned, no one's going to take away. So that's your success. So it's always going to be there with you and you're going to take it anywhere you go. And it's going to open any doors you want to open because it's something that's within you, So like I said, money comes and goes. You might get a job where you get a lot of money, but you didn't learn much. But once that job is gone, how are you going to get into this other position where you could get the same amount of money,
Right.
if you didn't really exercise your skills?
Right.
But if somebody who has those skills, could be better qualified for
Right.
that position.
Right.
So that's what I think that's what I know that I define success as. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. So, last question. What's next? What's next for you?
What's next? I want to do more of this.
Okay.
I've always wanted to get more involved with, the community, help out. I've always believed that, helping others is something that I really want to do, and at the moment, I am working, in an agency helping out these brands, but, I also want to help out, the people. So in the future, I do see myself doing more stuff for the community, still having this position that I like, doing a lot more research, making an impact. For me, it's like very important. Like I've always wanted to make a change. Still don't know how I want to do it, but I'm determined to make a change. And whoever's listening to this is, give them a little push to, pursue their goals and do the best that they can. So I think this is great to have. This what you created is it's amazing because, a lot of people don't understand how hard it is. Because we all come from different backgrounds, and it's tough for everyone. Everybody has their own story, and having just connecting with a story and this person can do it, I could do it too. So, in the future, I wanna do that. I wanna just help out.
So create some kind of resources or something
Yeah,
for people. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's really nice to be involved in stuff like that. I really enjoy it. Yeah, that's great. Well, Jorge, thank you so very much for taking the time to come in and talk with me. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm happy we got to connect again and hear where you've been and what you've been doing. It's been really awesome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the invitation and for allowing me to share my story. It's and good luck with everything. I think you're doing great things, and you really did do an impact in my life. Everything that you showed me really, really helped out. Your class was not the easiest class I have. It was one of the toughest classes that I had, but it really did, prepared me for what I'm doing at the moment. And, it's tough out there. So, just be ready and determined.
Thank you so much for sharing that with me, and that's really good to hear.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Thank you all for joining us today at Beyond the Beach. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. And if you're enjoying the show, please consider subscribing on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And for those of you who want to go the extra mile, please consider leaving a review or comment. Thank you.